Everyone is doing well. Thank you for joining us. We're going to give folks just a few minutes here just to trickle in. But thanks for spending some time with us today. While we wait for folks to join, please do let us know in the chat where you're joining us from. Always like to have a little map of our global footprint for these sessions.
And maybe in a second one, we would love to hear like what got you excited and what was the reasoning why you wanted to join today.
That'd be awesome. Anything you guys want to hear about? I'd love to hear about it.
Irene, we were just down at the AAA in Lexington, Kentucky over the weekend, so Kentucky is on our mind.
Yeah. Welcome in, folks. Hope everyone is doing great. Thanks for joining us. We're giving everybody just a minute or two to trickle in. You can let us know where you're joining us from. We'd love to know. It is a beautiful city, Irene. Awesome. Hi, folks. Thank you for joining. Just another, maybe Nashville. What another lovely city. Thanks for joining us, Don. Yeah. Awesome. But we're going to give folks just another like 30 seconds just to jump in. Awesome. Hi, Andy. Thanks for joining us from London. Awesome. Well, great team. We are just waiting, Lynn, we're just waiting for folks to trickle in, giving everybody about 30 seconds just to get settled. Awesome. Well, I think we've seen some, that's our friends up north. Hello, Toronto team, Christina, Illinois. Awesome. Well, great, folks. I am going to just start us off and we'll dig right in. So, hey, everyone, and welcome. My name is Sloan Kendall. I lead global partnerships here at Blink. Very excited to be here alongside our friends from Workday for what we believe to be just a really timely and important conversation. So today we're going to be talking about something that we certainly as a collective here are hearing being very top of mind for HR, IT, and comms leaders alike. And that's really all about, how do we actually reach and engage the full workforce and, not just people that are sitting behind a desk. So, as many folks who are joining us are probably aware, 80% of our global workforce is considered deskless or frontline. And these employees are, sitting in roles across retail, hospitality, healthcare, transit, logistics, manufacturing, and doing incredibly critical work, but often are underserved by traditional enterprise tools. And at the same time, we're seeing companies investing really more than ever into streamlining HR operations, improving overall employee experience. But for those distributed teams, adoption isn't just about what's technically available to them. It's really all about what's usable in the flow of their day-to-day work. And especially considering where we see is, more diverse than ever kind of generational gap in the frontline workforce. So solving for this challenge is absolutely top of mind when it comes to the Blink and Workday partnership and what we're setting out to do as a collective. And I think why we're so particularly bullish on this partnership today with Workday, really making an impact now more than ever. So to help us to kind of dive in and bring this topic to life, we're going to divide the session into kind of two parts. So we'll start with just a fireside chat, discuss the market, kind of business challenges that many of you may be kind of can relate to on a day-to-day basis, and what we see for really opportunities on the other side. And then for the second half, we'll go through a product demo to show you, how we're really forging the Blink and Workday platforms together in support of that kind of frontline engagement pursuit. So I want to start just by introducing the amazing panel of folks that we are fortunate to have join us today. I'll have each of them just give a quick hello and introduction. And Merrick, I'll have you start us off.
Hi, Merrick Hotsleaf, yep. I'm sitting in our Dublin office, but you'd normally find me in the London office. I'm a solution consultant at Workday and really focus on our retail hospitality customers, so that frontline workforce.
Awesome. Thanks, Merrick. Anna?
Hi, everybody. First, Sloan and Blink team, thank you so much for having us today. I'm super excited. As it says in my name, like strategic alliances. So I take basically care of our wonderful partner, and Blink is one of them. And I'm based in Munich. It's boiling hot out here. I would love to go to the lake and take a swim, but excited to talk with you guys about the challenges of frontline workers.
Awesome. Thanks, Anna. And Marcy, last but not least.
Hi, everybody. Marcy Patterson. I run our solutions consulting team here at Blink. I've been in the enterprise ecosystem for longer than I care to share, but really thrilled. Part of the move I made when I came over to Blink was because I felt a strong alignment to the mission of solving connectivity for folks who have been perhaps a little bit left behind. So thrilled to join Workday today and looking forward to the session.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thanks so much, everybody. Just very quickly here, so we're very fortunate that we've got some of our Blink and Workday customers that are joining us today. There are some orgs that we've been in conversation with over the last few months as well, but there are some new folks to Blink. So I thought probably helpful to get at least kind of a 30-second level set on who we are and where we're focused as an organization. So the way that you can think about Blink is really as a digital employee experience platform that's designed to connect every employee. So whether they're behind a desk or out in the field, connecting them with the people, the systems, and the information that they need to do their best work. So at its core, Blink is really centered around like access, and it bridges that gap between legacy corporate systems and then the realities of that frontline experience by making work more connected, communication more consistent, and experiences really more simplified and intuitive. So, in a world where digital transformation still oftentimes can overlook those deskless teams, Blink helps organizations create a more inclusive, aligned, and engaged workforce, and without needing to rip out and replace existing tools. So, at the end of the day, it's really not just about technology. It's about making sure everyone feels seen, supported, and part of and connected to the mission of the business. So hopefully that kind of grounds folks into where our perspective on this topic is coming from, and obviously the joint perspective of our partners in collaboration with Workday. But as I mentioned at the jump, we'll bring this to life a bit in the form of product features and functionality as well when we get to the second half of the session. So great. I am going to stop sharing so we can bring up our faces and to see folks for a chat. So I want to dig in, Anna, and just really start the conversation in what we may be able to kind of reference as kind of the new wave of digital transformation. So now organizations in most cases they've moved to the cloud, they've digitized a lot of historically manual processes. And now it's really more about kind of creating efficiency of that transformation, through things like, automation and AI. And so I'd love your take on how is Workday thinking about this shift in kind of workforce expectations, and why is, now again, more than ever, extending that access across all employees? Why has that become such a, critical conversation for you guys in, collaboration with your customers and your perspective in the market?
Yeah, thanks. I think first, like for Workday, it's always like people first. But like Workday, as many softwares, is in its root concepted like for workers who sit like you, or I think like all of us, behind a desk. And you mentioned it before, like 80% of the workforce is like deskless. They sometimes don't even have like an email address. So something like single sign-on, easy access, like that's what they need. And the churn rate of these folks is like incredible high if they don't feel connected. So with Workday, this is like crucial to us to have like a partner who really serves as the gateway to be able for these folks to use Workday And so I think this is where all this is coming from. And maybe to take a step back, like why doing this like through a partner like Blink, Workday is really like sure in what we're doing and where our core competencies is. And like there is not a software who, serves all needs and purposes. And that's why we're looking like who is the best fit for what we do. So ease of access, user availability, and there just Blink fit right perfectly into us.
Awesome. Oh, sorry, was someone going to chime in? I don't know if Merrick.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, Sloan, you sort of said do more with less, and AI really enables that. But you can have the best AI in the world if you're not getting your people to actually touch it. It's pointless, isn't it? So a platform like Blink is just driving that adoption, and it's actually getting people into Workday easier, so that you can actually get the benefits and all those things that Workday is delivering.
And what are some of the, I guess, in your conversations with organizations kind of on this topic, what do you hear from the field of, if we could do X better, if we could use Workday to, more potential, like what are the specific use cases you all are hearing, and even aside from the partnership, obviously, that we all have in our pursuit, how are you guys thinking about investing in your product to kind of help organizations kind of circumvent some of those challenges?
Merrick, do you want to kick it off, or should I do it? Just thought you're talking to customers every day, so I think
absolutely. I mean, it's super consistent. We need our customers need to reduce the admin burden from their employees and drive greater sort of employee and manager self-service, and especially on that manager self-service perspective. A lot of those transactions, they should be automated. They should be flowing through Workday. It shouldn't have to go through multiple hoops and have a central team manage. So we hear that all the time. How can we streamline the frontline manager, and also just give that frontline manager a single set of tools, so they're not bouncing around multiple systems trying to get the day job done. That is probably one of the most consistent messages I hear throughout the whole industry.
And maybe I would love to. So like with the customers I talk to who have like Workday and Blink, like they're amazed about like how easy it is, like with the certified integration, everything works seamless, and like kind of like later we see in the demo, like, everybody in our personal life uses like social media and goes around, and with your super app and how the access works, like it right feeds into it. And it's like so easy and intuitive to use that like the churn rates of this frontline workers just like immediately dropped. And that just excites everybody because all workers matter.
And I think there's something really interesting going on there when we think about sort of this connectivity to that front line, to Merrick's point about making things simpler, and to Anna's point, Workday does a lot, but in no organization is it only going to be Blink and Workday. So giving access to many capabilities in a simple way, and then by creating that connectivity, we've created sort of a platform, a foundation by which we can now deliver additional capabilities. And I think that's what we're certainly excited about. And we'll talk about this a little bit later. But as Workday continues to accelerate around self-service using AI, how are we delivering that to these frontline workers who could probably take the most advantage of it? And that's, I think, where the real vision is for our two companies.
100% agree. And I think, we've seen some early, not surprisingly, early momentum in, kind of the verticals that we mentioned at the jump. So retail, hospitality, transit, logistics. And I know, Merrick, obviously you're spending a particular a lot of time with organizations of that profile and that scope. what do you think it is like that is, particularly for those industries and those verticals and how they have to kind of like operate on a day-to-day basis? What do you think is kind of driving that frontline engagement gap the most? Like, if you had to kind of boil it down to maybe some of the biggest contributing factors.
It's exactly
loaded question, probably.
That's exactly what I'm smiling, because I'm thinking it's exactly what Blink's solving. We're talking about workers that haven't got a way to connect. Organizations, relying on posters in rec rooms and word of mouth to get communication out. They know their job. They don't necessarily know what's going on in the organization. So. And some of the best learning, and that comes from your peers as well. Have you done this in Workday? Have you tried that? And how do you communicate that? How do you get people engaged? How do you bring them in? And that communication is two-way. It's top-down. From an organization communicating to the employees. But I say that peer-to-peer communication you can't underestimate. If anything, at Workday we probably over communicate. And over communication means I avoid it. But when somebody tells me on my, as I'm walking past and says, "Hey, have you seen the new deal you can get on your medical for glasses," or something like that? Suddenly it means something. And it's that sort of communication you want to package and put together where employees can share. So I think that's exactly what Blink is doing. It's closing that communication gap, making those frontline workers who are often feeling very disconnected a little more connected.
Awesome.
And Sloan, if I can just jump in there too, I think to Marek's point, sort of this peer-to-peer connection, we're all sort of undertaking this this AI journey, and even us as an organization here at Blink are looking to do a better job of collecting and collating information in a way that it can be easily searched so that we can save time ourselves in the work that we're doing. To be able to extend that capability out to the front line from a maintenance perspective, from somebody who's trying to solve a problem for a particular customer, and to start building data sources that the front line is able to leverage as well. That's part of sort of that foundation that organizations need to start to build for the front line, much like we're doing for the desk-based worker. And the value could be extrapolated enormously once you get that out to the front line.
Yeah, 100%. I think the communication wrapper has always kind of stuck out to me as like the real crux of where our partnership kind of elevates to the next level of, making and having that communication meet in the employees in a way that they're used to consuming information. I think, Marek, you made a great point of, putting flyers up in a break room or, having a shared kiosk where folks can kind of opt in to finding information, is a method. But ultimately, especially as we see kind of the rise of Gen Z in the workforce, they're used to quick snippets, easily digestible, snackable ways to find information, and in a way that's interactive. So, and I won't steal thunder from the demo portion of the conversation, but that's so much of how we're thinking about bringing to life, not just kind of day-to-day communications, but an easier way to consume the goodness that's coming from a platform like Workday, not just in a kind of log of notifications that somebody might have to kind of sift through to find exactly what they're looking for, but in a way that's visual, easy, kind of simplified, to make sure, again, that they're getting the most value from a system as powerful as a Workday.
Sorry, so can I jump in and just mention one other thing?
Sure.
I think it's interesting. We talk a lot about Gen Z. And clearly we've seen as an organization how quickly the Gen Zers can get up to speed and start communicating and connecting with each other. Again, a lot of these organizations, those folks may not have an email address. They don't have chat capabilities. So getting them on the platform and allowing them to start communicating in the way that they're familiar with is super impactful. But I was at a session out in, I don't remember where I was, but I did a session with one of our customers who's a cement manufacturer, and their employee demographic is not Gen Z. And yet the impact that something like Blink can have on every generation. It's really cross-generational, and that's certainly intentional from our perspective to make it as easy as possible. So I think it's great what we can do for Gen Z, but I think we also, from an inclusivity perspective, we're really looking to include everyone, and a lot of frontline organizations aren't necessarily Gen Z.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point. I want to maybe pivot a little bit just to be cognizant of time so we can make sure to spend as much time in the product and let folks ask questions as we go through. But maybe, Anna, to you, when you think about kind of the possibilities, obviously we've been in each other's orbit for some time now. Very fortunate to be part of the ventures portfolio with Workday, and now to be in Platinum Innovation tier and working collaboratively with you. There's so much more, I think, that our customers are kind of guiding us on, where we can have these platforms really start to intersect in some really interesting ways. Maybe just your perspective on, where this thing could go, and what you see as opportunities for Blink and Workday to kind of keep on our radar.
Yeah. So I think you mentioned almost all like the industries where, frontline workers are really present. But I think it doesn't really matter. Like, let's not focus on industries, because in the end, it works for everyone. Like, it doesn't really matter like what the split is. And I think even like for me as a desk worker, I would be like, oh, it would be, fun. Like we use at the moment Slack, but sometimes I'm like sharing like a picture. Oh, that's what I did like on the weekend too, because like my team is like global. So my manager is in Canada. I have a colleague like in ANZ, and it's really hard to connect with them. And like, I think a platform who would even feel more like a social communication system would also help me as a worker in front of a desk better to connect with them and to share and to feel like even more part of something. And I think that's maybe a vision we can also like explore in the future. And you guys bring a lot of new functionalities as Workday does. I think we can be excited like about, let it be from like AI agents to whatever. There's constantly an update, and I'm really curious to see where this partnership takes us. And I think we just started to really work in close in the last couple of years. So there is not really a limit in my vision.
Merrick, anything that stands out to you as maybe an interesting use case, or is some art of the possible that we can maybe start to think about or chip away at as we can continue and working with mutual customers?
And I think we're going to scale to take some of Marcy's thunder as we kind of touch on a little bit more in the demo. But it's how we kind of, what's happening with agentic AI, and how we start to really bring that closer to the employee, in the Workday agent running in Blink, and we'll talk a bit more about that. But that is a super exciting area.
Agree. Well, I think it feels like a perfect transition then, Marcy, to you, for us to kind of dig into the platform and bring some of this kind of conversation and these examples to life.
Yep, perfect. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. And I am going to, I'm going to start on the mobile, and then we'll move over to the desktop after that. So can you just confirm that you can see my mobile phone?
Yep.
Not yet.
Yeah,
we can see.
Okay, let me try it again. Sharing. Let's just do this.
Sharing your mobile phone is always the hardest part of any demonstration. Once you can get your mobile phone shared, you're going to be fine.
Yay, that looks good.
There it is.
Downhill from here.
Perfect. And I'm glad you're not seeing my second screen. So that worked out well too. Okay, perfect. As I said, we've got about 20 minutes here. I'm just going to run through a high-level demo using 3 personas. The first persona is what we would consider a pre-boarder. So I'm Bill, and I've gotten an invitation to join Blink, Kintara Global's employee app. And so I've gotten a message here, welcome to your employee app, your one-stop shop for everything you'll need to begin your journey at Kintara. So when Bill gets added to Workday, we can automatically provision him into Blink using our out-of-the-box Workday connector. And what we're doing now is engaging with Bill. We do know that attrition pre-start date can be an issue for a lot of organizations. So how can we engage with Bill early on, make sure he has everything that he needs to get started at the organization? This is delivered through what we would essentially call a drip feed. It's an integration between our Blink journey, employee journey capabilities and Workday journeys, so that each employee, as they're onboarded, has an understanding of what needs to be done before they get here, and then once they get here, what their first day and subsequent days are going to look like. So within this feed post, again, sent automatically through our employee journeys capability, I can log into Workday, and I can click right here, and that's going to log me right into Workday, into my profile in Workday, and I can update the information I might need to update. Another example here is it says, please complete your beneficiary and your payroll deposit. If I click on payroll deposit, that's bringing me right to the payroll section in Workday. So for a pre-boarder who might need to complete these tasks before they even get onboarded, it needs to be simple and it needs to be straightforward, and they're not necessarily going to be familiar with Workday or a payroll deposit form. So making this as simple as possible, but then if they need help, making it easy to chat with their manager. We have a full chat capability built natively on the platform. We know that a lot of organizations for their frontline don't necessarily extend chat licensing out to that frontline. In fact, a lot of these folks may not even have an email address. And so giving them these capabilities in a single place where they can access it can certainly be a game changer.
Yeah. And Marcy, I just like that chat feature, because what it's doing is, a lot of the times the frontline workers, they're not storing their personal mobile inside Workday, and then similarly they don't really want to be sharing it with their manager or with their team either. So now you've got a nice ring-fenced chat platform. So you can still have the communication without sharing personal data or anything like that. And I'm always afraid of crazy WhatsApp groups that start to form as well.
Well, yeah, and we absolutely know that if you're not supplying chat as a function to your employees, you can guarantee that they are chatting with each other. They're just doing it on WhatsApp or on Messenger if you happen to be here in the US. But likewise, the other sort of underlying capability that is less obvious, Merrick, that ties to what you're saying about not having to share cell phones and not using sort of those WhatsApps and messengers. Chat with my manager, my chat groups is tied to my organization, so that if I leave the organization, I'm going to automatically be pulled out of these chat groups. And as folks are added to the organization, they're going to be automatically added to those chat groups. And that's all a function of that Workday integration. We're really looking to reduce the administration on Blink itself by taking advantage of all of the work that's being done in Workday to maintain that data.
So you're almost just creating groups from our supervisory organizations. They're just inherent.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, I like it.
I was just going to chime in. We had a question that is relevant for, I think, this particular section. Lynn's asking, would you need Blink if you use onboarding experience and workers have access to Workday Direct?
Yeah. Do you need Blink? Blink is just going to make things simpler to point to Workday. I think it's a platform, especially when you're joining, it's a much more intuitive platform. You're getting on it, you're starting to see a feed, it's something you're very, very used to, and it's going to point you to Workday. If an employee went into Workday first and completed their onboarding journey in Workday, absolutely fine as well. But I think it's one of those things that the more channels of getting employees to be engaged and to actually complete those onboarding tasks, it's just going to help.
And I think the other thing that's not necessarily as obvious, but what we spoke of during the fireside chat, is for most organizations, Workday's not the only application they're leveraging. So while maybe I can get into Workday to get that done, what do I then do to get my schedule or to do other functions associated to my job? With Blink, we can incorporate all of those connections into a single app, and we'll see a little bit of that as we go through. Again, we're sort of drip feeding these feed posts. So perhaps day 7, I got that first one. Tomorrow's your start date. Let's make sure you're ready to go. Again, giving me quick access to the things that I need, which also could be my day 1 schedule. That could be stored in our hub. That could be a help document on Workday. I have quick access to that. And then let's say it's the morning of my start date and I still haven't completed some tasks. Here's where we can do what we call a feed card notification. This is Workday sort of letting this user know that there's uncompleted tasks. So this is an automated integration we can create with Workday based on triggers. We could do this same thing if they had a learning course that they needed to complete and they hadn't completed. We do this all the time with pay slips, just reminding people that it's payday and they can click right from the feed into their pay slip. So it becomes really what I like to call an enhanced notification. Again, a lot of these folks may not have email. And also, quite frankly, email is just not that effective to communicate information anymore. So this becomes a much better communications mechanism.
And I think to that, the question earlier about the onboarding is you can imagine frontline workers coming into Blink not to do their workday tasks. It's coming in to see who's had a birthday or, what fun things happened in the store, the hotel, the restaurant, wherever you're working. And you get a nudge to get into Workday, where without Blink, it's really you're relying on the employee to think, hey, I want to go in and do my HR tasks. And as much as I'd love people to have that mentality that we just want to jump into Workday and do the HR tasks, it's not always so easy.
That's right. I'm actually going to stop sharing for 1 second, and I'm just going to move. I'm going to move Bill from a pre-boarder to an onboarder. And now I'm going to share again. And by virtue of changing his groups, now you'll see he has a lot more access to things in quick links in the hub. And now he'll start receiving more posts from other folks. He'll be able to chat with additional people and join some groups. So this is the ability to sort of manage access through the pre-boarding process. And then once onboarded, perhaps this particular user has access to a lot more things, many of which may be in Workday and some of which may be in another system. I'm going to actually switch users and jump over to a manager. While I do that, or before I do that, Merrick, any comments or are there any questions, Sloan, from the folks on the phone?
We did have one question from, let's see. So most of our frontline personnel are not equipped with a professional mobile phone, but they have a personal one for your own use. In the companies you have deployed the Blink solution at, have you encountered this issue and how do you overcome it?
Yeah, great question. I would say close to 90% of the customers that we service, their frontline organizations are downloading Blink on personal mobile devices. So we well understand both the simplicity of that, in that folks are able to access what they need, but also some of the complexities, whether it be compensatory related, and if they're using Blink, does that mean I'm going to have to pay them for that time, as well as from an MDM, a managed device perspective. So there are certainly some things to take into consideration. Quite frankly, the way we manage that at a very high level is generally through policy. It's generally not mandatory for an employee to download Blink. We use a little bit of FOMO. We give them access to the things they want and they need, but companies don't necessarily make it mandatory. And then we do continue to provide access to certain capabilities through a kiosk mode for those who choose not to necessarily download it. So definitely an issue we encounter often, and happy to talk about it more offline.
Awesome. One more question, and then there's a third that I'll hold on because I think you'll get to it. But are these posts only managed enterprise-wide, or can they be pushed out at a more granular level?
Oh, perfect. Teeing me up for Alex,
Right.
my operational manager. Yep. So I've now logged in as Alex. As I mentioned, Alex, because he's been onboarded a lot longer, you can see he has a lot of chats going. He's got a lot of access to some different groups, and he's got a lot more feed posts. And we're going to talk more about some of these feed posts as well. Couple of things that you're seeing here. You know, we've talked about sort of Blink as a communications wrapper and as a way to provide frictionless access to applications for, particularly in this case, frontline employees. The feed, however, it can also be a real driver for engagement and culture. And I think that's important to stress. It's not just a communications wrapper. It's an engagement mechanism to help people feel they belong. Again, spending a lot of time with frontline organizations. We talked about sort of attrition before start date. We also know many organizations have a tough time with 90-day attrition. They might have particularly high 90-day attrition because an employee joins and for some reason just never feels connected or gets connected and they end up leaving. That's one of the real influences we have the ability to manage here with Blink. To that point, from a culture perspective, Anna mentioned sharing a picture with her colleagues who are possibly distant. Alex here had the opportunity to go to Rita's. If anybody has the opportunity to go to Rita's, they absolutely should. So he's sharing his Rita's custard with his team. Again, you have the ability to segment your audience. Maybe Alex is only allowed to post to his broader team, and some of the posts coming from top down, the communications folks can communicate with everybody. Lots of ways to set that up in Blink. You also have the ability to communicate in interesting ways. So Alex created a quick post for his team saying, hey, what should we do for our summer outing? And folks can just click on their choice, and he's going to get that from a poll perspective and start seeing what the results are. So these are just great ways to sort of drive culture and engagement for the organization and for the team. And for Alex as a frontline manager, again, the other thing we know about frontline managers is they tend to have a very large span of control, a lot of employees that they're managing, and those could be on different shifts in different locations. So again, to give them a mechanism to better communicate and engage with their employees can be super impactful.
And that's what I like about Blink, is it really empowers the frontline manager to do things like just push out a poll or a survey. You know, Workday's got surveys, but it tends to be more driven by the HR organization. As part of a business process, something a little bit more structured. But Blink, something simple like that, where should we eat out? Giving that frontline manager that capability, it's fantastic.
Yep, and one more sort of driver of that, Merrick, that I'll just showcase here is our Kudos app. This is just a recognition app where a manager can give recognition to one of their employees, or an employee can give recognition to one of their peers. Again, based on the data that we're seeing on the back end, we know that these recognition posts can drive some of the highest engagement. And we're tracking that engagement as people are liking, as people are commenting. And for those who are curious, you can choose whether to turn commenting on for a particular post. And we also do a lot of post moderation to make sure that folks aren't posting anything or commenting on anything that's not appropriate. But so we're tracking all of that activity, and we'll talk a little bit later about how we use that activity to help you understand how well your organization is performing at an operational level, at a local level, at a geo level. Let's just take a look. Oh, so go ahead, Merrick.
If you give kudos to somebody, who sees that? On whose feeds does it appear?
It's absolutely up to you. When I give kudos, I can say you're a star. I can pick Rachel. I can send that to Rachel and Alexis. I can put in some text, and then I can choose who that's going to go out to. Again, that's going to be based on what I have access to from a communications perspective. But one of the other things that's really nice is if you see kudos, and I just have to back out of this, a communications manager could see a particular post and think, I want to I want to raise visibility on that. And you'll see the boost function here. They have the ability to boost that post, and somebody with a wider berth could potentially share that with an additional audience.
Yeah, I like that just on the kudos, because sometimes you like to just share it with your team, and you don't want to, in Workday, if you share it, it's going to be open. And some people are a bit shy, so smaller groups helps a lot.
Also, that's really important, Marek, because again, you don't want to overwhelm the feed with information that may or may not be relevant to me. So we use that target audiencing to make sure that what I'm seeing are things that I should care about, like the recognition for folks who are within my team, for sure. Just really quick, because I happen to be here, you can see that this particular post was sent in, I believe it's German. Anna can validate that for me. Because I don't speak German, I see a view translation, and that's just going to translate that. So we have automatic translation here based on the settings of your phone. Again, understanding that a lot of your frontline workers may not be speaking the same language, but allowing them to stay connected in spite of that. So just a couple of other points here as Alex. Sloan, keep me honest with time.
We still we've still got plenty of time, so I think you got another 10 minutes if you need.
Perfect. So Marek was talking about sort of that frontline manager. We've talked a bit about enabling that frontline manager. And within Blink, you have the opportunity to send a lot of different types of feed posts. So one example of that is a priority post. So if there's something going on within a particular site or within a particular area, and a manager wants to send a note to their team, again, those teams are maintained automatically through that supervisor hierarchy from Workday. And they can send a quick post letting them know that perhaps there's a fire. And then their employees will be asked to acknowledge that. And so then you can track acknowledgements and make sure that your team has seen the information. If you wanted to take that a step further and really drive towards compliance from an attestation perspective, you can use Blink's mandatory read feature. This is essentially a layer above an acknowledgement where it's really attesting, and I'm tracking on the back end who has seen and attested to the fact that they have seen this information. So if you think about safety training and you have to track your compliance to particular safety training or yearly security training that every employee needs to take, you can use this attestation feature. And again, I know some folks may be leveraging Workday for that, in which case maybe we would just send a feed post and send them to Workday to do that attestation, but it just gives you some flexibility.
Yeah.
And then finally, the other thing I just wanted to showcase really quickly was, Marek, you had mentioned something from an operational perspective, the ability to sort of manage tasks through a workflow. And Blink can be a workflow enabler where if a task has been created in another system, we can notify the manager that that task has been completed. There was another example, and now I'm going to start my scrolling, which I try not to do. A return to work notification. Perhaps somebody took short-term disability, and then Blink can be the notification engine triggered from Workday that says, hey, your employee's coming back. Here's their return to work, and here's what you need to do to complete that process. So just really easy ways of communicating important information to the different employees to make sure that work stays on track.
I love that, because those are the things that get missed, and also be able to embed, the Workday help documentation inside the notification as well. So you're really giving, just the notification in Blink. It's easy to see, but the transaction in Workday, and I think that works really, really well together.
Yep. And you had asked a question earlier, can an operations manager, or somebody in the audience had asked, can anybody create a feed post, or is that just comms? And I had noted that anybody can. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and share a post, and I can put news. I can select my audience. This is going to be based on the teams I have access to. And now I can share a post. Please welcome Bill, who we know just joined. Now, the other thing you'll notice here is, sorry about my typing, And because perhaps I'm not a good typist, nor am I super comfortable with my communication style, I can leverage Blink Assist. And this is a generative AI that will write my post for me or improve my post. So it just makes it really simple for folks who may not be as comfortable posting to let AI do some of that work for them.
And that's super key, certainly here in Europe. We've got a lot of frontline workers that English is not always going to be the first language, even though they might be working in an English company. So it just gives people more confidence to engage and to post.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm going to touch on a couple of quick features, and then I'm going to jump over the hub and explain a little bit more about sort of that Workday integration, that integration to third-party to third-party systems, and then I'll jump over to the desktop and give you a quick view of the desktop and also some of the analytics. So chats, we talked a little bit about chats, the ability to chat here on the platform. Also important to note that Blink has full voice and video so that you can call and video call both with a single person and a group of people. So if anybody's used to incident management as an example where you have to spin up a quick call and have a bunch of folks join that call, Blink becomes an excellent mechanism right from within the app to support that. And then I'm just going to go to the hub, and we saw some of these quick links before. And we talked about sort of jumping into Workday. I have my Workday icon here. I can go into Workday, but I can also do what we call function fencing, where I could jump right to my team schedule in Workday. I could jump right to my leave form in Workday. This is going to Workday. I just get impatient during demos, so sorry if I'm going too quickly. But for, again, a frontline worker or a manager to just reduce the clicks and get right to where I need to get to is super powerful, and also becomes a powerful change management capability. So I know that a lot of organizations have a tendency to change payroll providers. And Merrick, you were mentioning that oftentimes with a Workday rollout, payroll won't necessarily be part of the phase one rollout. With Blink sort of abstracting some of those systems from the user, I could click on my pay, and yesterday this might have gone to ADP, and today it brings me right to Workday. So it just takes the sort of friction out of the change for that end user, which again can be quite powerful.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. As I say, there's no one ever, very rarely does somebody do everything all at once. So often it's going to be phased, and then having Blink as that layer, it means the change management, like you said, Marcy, it's just so much simpler because the person is still clicking the same place, and it's now just taking them hopefully to the next Workday module that's been rolled out.
Yep, and I'm sure there'll be some enablement, and we can post that enablement into the feed. Hey, folks, our payroll provider's changing. You won't have to do anything, but here's just a quick high level of what your new payslip's going to look like. But from a systems access perspective, just as simple. I really sort of slid over sort of Blink as the identity provider for Workday. Because we're syncing data from Workday, we're collecting that Workday ID, and we use that Workday ID to get them right over to Workday. So again, that's some of how we're reducing that friction from a user sign-on perspective. Okay, I think that covers everything I wanted to. I just actually have one more thing here, and then we'll jump over to the desktop and we'll finish up. You see below my quick links are some quick actions, and we talked in the fireside chat about AI. So as a quick example, here I'm going to report a lateness. And if I click on that, I'm getting a chat bot. So this is where we're really looking forward to integrating with some of those self-service agents, Merrick, that I know Workday is creating and just distributing those. Blink becomes a distribution mechanism for those and then can really drive that self-service that those agents are intended to do.
Absolutely. And some of our customers will be experiencing the Workday assistant running in Teams and Slack, and we've got even more coming on that with our employee self-service agent. So to have that employee self-service agent embedded into Blink, it means employees can start almost transacting in Workday right from a natural language interface inside Blink.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, I'm actually going to jump over to my desktop. And hopefully this is going to go seamlessly. Can you see that?
We can.
Yes.
Love it when something works. Okay, just to finish up, I've now logged into Blink on the desktop, and you can see the look and the feel is quite similar. Again, quite intentional. You know, we talk a lot about the frontline workforce, but we also recognize that a lot of desk-based workers are in transition much of the time. And so whether I'm on a train, I'm on a bus, or I'm sitting in my living room on a Sunday and I want to get some work done, I can access Blink and get the same type of information that I was able to get on my mobile from my desktop. And so that transition makes it really easy for users who might be going from one to the other. On our desktop app, this really can become your social mobile intranet. You have the ability to modify the menuing here to click to all of the systems or places that you would want to. You can see I have my calendar here. I can chat right from my home page. I have access to those same quick links. And then below are some of those same feed posts that I was seeing on my mobile device. The other thing we do have the ability to do is from a communications perspective, we can run programs. So I'm sure many folks are familiar with open enrollment. I have open enrollment coming in October. I can preset a bunch of communications relevant to that open enrollment and have those scheduled, and those will go out automatically when that date hits. I have one for July 24th, and then one for September 30th. So a lot you can do there. And additionally, you do have the ability to manage and create events in Blink. And we talked about sort of voice and video. We also do live streaming in Blink. So I can stream my company all hands. I can stream training all through the Blink platform, or by integrating with your favorite streaming platform if you have one that you're using. Finally, I just wanted to touch a little bit on analytics. And I'm actually going to, I think I have this window open, but I'm just going to open it again. I'm just going to go to the back end now and showcase the analytics and talk a little bit about how those analytics can help really drive behavior. So as I mentioned on the demo, we're really capturing all of the likes, the comments, the clicks that are happening across the system. And we do it in the right way. And we make sure our frontline workers know that we're not trying to monitor where they are or what they're doing. We're just trying to monitor overall sentiment and engagement, and that use that information to let folks know what's working and what's not working. So if I have particular organizations, and all of this is filterable by different managers and locations, I can see how much activity, how much engagement is going on. And then, Merrick, what you and I had talked about is then taking this data and correlating it to attrition and perhaps looking for trends as to where engagement is low and attrition is high. And then within Blink, we can also do some nudge tech, where if I have a particular manager who hasn't reached out to a new employee to say hi, or who hasn't sent a feed post to their team in the last 2 weeks, we can actually nudge them through that same feed and let them know, hey, good time to communicate. Here's some ideas on what you might want to say, and really look to drive some better behavior aligned to your specific outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah.
That was all I had for today, Sloan.
Awesome. We do have. I'm responding to some questions live in the chat here, but there's a couple I just wanted to ask out loud because I think will be helpful for the wider group. So, how has Blink and Workday positioned their offerings, and any potential thoughts of redundancy with Microsoft Teams? So, organizations that have other communication platforms may be hesitant to adopt Blink if they utilize other tools for communication. Marcy, you want to maybe chat a little bit about the interoperability and kind of how we've tackled this with some other customers?
Yep, there's no question that, okay, if I can just say it, Microsoft is trying to own the world. And we do have a lot of our customers who are leveraging Microsoft tools, but also who are leveraging Google Chat or Slack, particularly for chat. Now, what we do find is many of those organizations don't extend those capabilities out to the front line. So there can be a bifurcation between the desk-based users and the frontline users. And we have a lot of customers who are using Blink Chat for the front line and using Teams for the desk-based worker. And we have the ability to launch a Teams chat right from the Blink Chat. We do also have the ability to sort of replace our chat with a Google chat if an organization's using Google Chat, and we'll be doing the same thing with Slack within the next month or so. So chat seems to be the one mechanism that there's the most overlap in my mind.
I think what I see is typically for organizations that they just don't roll out Teams or Slack or even email to those frontline workers. So I don't think you want to compete with Slack or Teams, but there's a massive gap where the frontline workers just don't have anything, and that's really, I see that's the sweet spot for the Blink Workday partnership.
Although, and I will say that we do have lots of customers, actually a very large retailer in Europe, they're global, has procured Microsoft Entra IDs for their users, and they are using those Entra IDs for single sign-on. So they're using Workday, they're using Blink, but they've also umbrellaed Entra across both of those. So there's a lot of different ways to approach. I mean, we believe our identity capabilities, particularly for Workday customers, can negate the need to purchase Entra licenses for your frontline workers, which can save you a significant amount of money. But those are choices that are generally driven from the security team within the customers that we serve.
Awesome. Couple other quick questions. Can you set the chat function to auto delete messages after, say, a 24-hour window for internal data in compliance reasons?
Yep, you do. I don't know, honestly, if it goes to 24 hours, but you do have a chat retention policy, and you can set that chat retention policy. I also think it's important that people understand that our chat, much like any other chat, is private. And so if I'm chatting with Sloan, nobody else can see that chat. However, if there's a compliance issue and Sloan is saying something inappropriate and I flag it,
which I often do,
make a request, and we can, through the back end, pull those chats if it's prior to your chat retention policy. So it works very similar to any other chat platform you're likely using.
Yep. And then is scheduled posting available on mobile also, as well as desktop?
Oh, I think it is, but I'm going to have to just check. Yeah.
I believe it is. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Reconfirm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then is it possible to do tasks via Blink? Example, request time off, or does Blink always direct you to Workday to do it, like we saw in the payroll example Marcy showed?
So without offending my brethren here, no, it does not have to use Workday. We can integrate with any third-party system, and Blink actually has a forms utility. We have a large logistics customer in France who ask for time off via a Blink form, and that routes to their manager for approval and then goes to their HR system to be integrated. So there's a lot of ways to approach those different use cases. We find most of our Workday customers, as we said, have different solutions for different parts of the business, and we're integrating often with more than one system for a lot of those use cases. We just happen to show Workday today. Wonderful.
I think we've got them all. Lots of great questions. So thank you, everybody, for just your, the conversation. And hopefully everyone's walking away with a little bit more context to just how our two organizations are thinking about improving the overall employee experience, and certainly lots more to come, I think, from this little corner of the world on additional ways for us to just, make business process easier, especially for our friends who are deskless. So I would be remiss to not very quickly, with our 90 seconds left, to just very quickly make mention of another session that we do have up coming, in case this is interesting for folks to join. On July 9th, we will be joined by our friends at McDonald's for a conversation on their journey with Blink, especially kind of post coming from the workplace world. So they've migrated away from Meta Workplace, given the sunsetting news that some folks joining us today may be aware of. So it'll be all about kind of their journey, how they are thinking about their global workforce and kind of, creating an experience that's really specific to kind of each team, each restaurant, within their kind of franchised organization. So really compelling, interesting conversation. We'd love to have you join us. But again, thank you to our Workday friends, Merrick and Anna. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate the conversation, and much more to come, hopefully in the months ahead on this partnership. Looking forward to Rising in the fall. And please reach out if you do have other questions. We'd love to chat more for any folks who maybe didn't get to pipe in with some specific questions. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll hopefully catch you very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thanks for having us. Bye.